Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on FP&A in Age of Autonomous Finance. My name is Shipra Sudhan, and I'm the Practice Head of Finance Analytics at Fractal Analytics. I'll be moderating today's panel discussion, where we will explore the exciting world of finance and technology. Former GE CEO Jack Welch famously advised, change before you have to. As you know, we are living in a time of rapid and radical innovation, where technologies such as automation and artificial intelligence are transforming the way finance professionals work, make decisions, and drive business success. How can we leverage these technologies to enhance our FP&A capabilities and create value for our organizations? What are the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in this dynamic and evolving landscape? These are some of the questions that we will address in this webinar, with insights from our distinguished panelists who have extensive experience and expertise in this domain. Towards the end of the webinar, we'll have an interactive Q&A session where you can engage with our experts. Without further ado, let me introduce our panelists who will share their perspective and best practices with us today. Our first panelist is Madhuri Raju. Madhuri is Head of Digital Solution and Advanced Analytics at Siemens Technology and Services Private Limited. Madhuri Raju is an accomplished leader with a proven track record of driving data-related business objectives. She has developed innovative solutions and successfully solved operational and strategic challenges in global Fortune 500 companies within the healthcare and manufacturing sectors. Madhuri holds an MBA in Finance and Strategy from University of Michigan Ross School of Business, complemented by an MS in Computer Science and Engineering from Auckland University. Madhuri, I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Our second speaker of tonight is Mr. Suman K. Das. Suman is an ex-managing director, Eli Lilly. With more than 35 years of experience, this business leader and CFO has demonstrated expertise in finance, global capabilities center, and strategic planning within the pharmaceutical and FMCG industries. His role as managing director involved overseeing the holistic well-being of company and scaling a global capability center in Bangalore. Strong operations professional who is a chartered accountant and company secretary focusing in accounting and finance. Thank you so much for joining us, Suman.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And our third expert is Ashwath Bhatt. Ashwath is Chief CFO at Fractal Analytics, experienced in finance with global and multi-market experience, with a demonstrated history of partnering with business leaders to improve financial performance, skilled in finance, strategy, acquisition and divestitures, commercial finance, pricing, controllership, treasury operations and finance analysis, GE, FMP, and chartered accountant from India. Ashwath, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks a lot, Shipra. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. Starting with the discussion on our today's topic of FP&A in the world of FP&A in the age of autonomous finance, let me direct my first question to Suman. With over 35 years of experience in the field, could you share your perspective on what autonomous finance means to you? How do you envision it reshaping the landscape of financial planning and analysis? Additionally, we would appreciate your insights into specific emerging technologies that are driving success in this new era of finance.
Thanks, Shipra. When I look back at when I started and where after 35 years, clearly autonomous finance is the way to go. But I guess we are on that path and still a long way off. For me, autonomous finance is all that we're discussing today, Gen AI and the cognitive skills that are required. Basically, for me, autonomous finance is a little different from automation. Autonomous finance should yield augmented real-time insights, effortless compliance, and also greater flexibility in executing financial strategies, right? It goes much beyond the automated function in its ability to self-learn and work without almost human intervention. So if you look at where we are today, every corporation in the world is engaged in a relentless pursuit of what we call strategically actionable insights, right? And to get them as fast as possible before their nearest competitor. So when you look at the FP&A teams, they are the apple cart is being upset everywhere because at one side they're becoming much more powerful because they have access to new tools and data, and on the other side, it is causing a bit of churn in the type of skills that you require to execute tasks today. I see the impact in probably three areas. If you look at automation being the first piece, most of the organizations are today focused on clean sheeting their data across the company and the enterprise because that's really the foundation for doing anything else. There's also a lot of accent on working on arduous and time-consuming tasks and automating them. What does this do? This augments human productivity. So you streamline efficiency, you make people much more productive because they're focusing on things that they should be focusing on and not on the reconciliations and the basic stuff. All this is aided by the speed by which we can process data today on a real time basis, right? And that also is causing a lot of innovation in approaches. And you can see a lot of examples in how global companies are today turning out data on their financials in days and not in weeks. You can also look at how companies are, the FP&A teams especially, are working with their marketing colleagues and coming out with the information which is helping them make their launches much better, as one example. Now, if you look at technologies, obviously companies are looking at their existing systems and upgrading some. They are looking at IoT, blockchain, cloud computing, which helps them access and manipulate large amounts of data. They're looking at Internet of Things. And on top of that, now they're going into Gen AI, which is not exactly plug and play, right? You can't take Gen AI and leave it and take it from there. You have to do certain other things before Gen AI can actually become much more active. So that's where I'll stop. But it's obviously a very interesting time, but it's much more complex than I made it out to be.
Thank you, Suman, uh, for sharing your insightful thoughts. I'll pass it on to Madhuri next. Madhuri, same question to you. What are the latest trends that you see in FP&A? And could you shed some light on the emerging technologies that are driving success in the era of finance?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. And this is a topic that is very not only relevant, but also very close to my career path because I come from a technology background. I have a very non traditional financial um, career pathway. I came into finance from technology, so I have a deep understanding of technology. And then I got introduced in the world of finance. So when I came into finance, and this is coming from a first-hand perspective, I saw that so many tasks coming from technology, from IT, they were so manual. I was shocked. So I was seeing that the finance professionals were spending more time in tool than in analysis. So I was a little bit shocked. So I'm excited where the world is headed because this enables the people to do the work that they are actually meant to do. Like the finance analyst should be analyzing data and not trying to create or clean up data. That's the world of technology, and that should be done by different people. However, now coming to this world, but the problem here is the world between finance, business, and IT is a little bit blurred. And IT is more focused around keeping your infrastructure, your tools, your software. They are the housekeepers for that. They have very little understanding of the financial or the business implications of data. And that's where the lines get blurred. And I've been there in the forefront to see where those limitations and the challenges lie. So this is an opportunity for people in the finance world, to take charge, to learn those tools, to blur the lines further, not only get to know the world of finance, but also get to know the tools so that they can sort of integrate them and create a better line of sight for the data that's in the finance. So in that realm, I would say RPA, because the finance people, they understand the world of finance, they understand the ecosystem that the data resides in and the way that the workflows actually operate in real life. RPAs are a great way, a low code, because finance people, they typically don't write code other than macros, right? So they are learning Python, but that's not their domain. So that's something new. So RPAs come in very handy. They are low code platform. They understand how the data flow should occur. So RPAs can easily be used. That's a technology that's very useful for the people in finance to sort of use to create that workflow very quickly and scalably. And of course, there is all the libraries with Python that is available. That they can be, and I think finance now is not just traditionally looking at balance sheets or cash flow. They also need to be statistically minded, because the models that they use, they need to have that mindset. They need to be used, a little bit more conversant in statistics as well. So their knowledge base right now is kind of, I know that's a later question, but that's shifting. And those tool sets that come with that, right? You asked about what tool sets, what technology tool sets. These are the technology tool sets that are coming into the domain, but that requires a little bit more awareness by the financial, talent that we have.
Sure. Thank you, Madhuri, for your perspective on this. Uh, Ashwath, having served as CFO in multiple organizations, we value your perspective as well on changing landscape of FP&A. Could you also discuss some of the emerging technologies that are driving success in this new era of finance?
Perfect. Thanks, Shipra, again. So I think for me, I've always, again, I became a CFO. Before that, I was FP&A. So FP&A is something that I think I understand decently well. For me, FP&A, I define it as a function which collects or collates a lot of data. Okay. And then, so it's collecting a lot of dots in a way, and then connecting a lot of those dots to kind of create insights, and then driving correcting actions to kind of get to a much better place across the organization. I think for me, automation or autonomous finance within FP&A is all about, again, we have now a lot more data than what we had before, and a lot more faster than what we had before. I think that's where, like core engineering, how do you create a data lake? Because every organization, fortunately or unfortunately, has had now, like, you have multiple systems from which you get the data. So how do you ensure that all of them kind of gets into one place and one source of truth? And then what kind of analytics that you build out of it? So historically, it was mainly focused around analyzing the past data to understand, okay, what happened. I think now looking more into lead indicators and not always into lag indicators, and then predicting, okay, what's likely to happen again is becoming even more important. And with automation, I think FP&A has much better ability right now than ever before to kind of predict the future, and or rather reasonably predict the future. And with I know there is a lot of talk about Gen AI, there is a lot of talk about AI, and everybody wants to say that, okay, AI has already reached a particular stage where we may not need as many analysts as before. At least the place where we are right now, I still don't think we are nowhere close to a place where we need less analysts and not more analysts. Give a very quick example, like we were doing some churn analysis, and we realized that again, not to take the name of the company, we were basically looking at a client feedback very closely. So our analysis was trying to correlate, is the reducing let's say NPS or net promoter score from a client is a great indicator of our churn analysis. And what we found out, like, this is what where the human element kind of came into picture. more than the correlation between reduced, say, NPS score to a churn, it was more of a client not really responding to your NPS ask was a better correlation or a better indicator of a client churn later. Do we have, say, AI or analytics right now, which can kind of predict something like this? Maybe we'll get there very soon. Maybe there is something which I'm not aware of. But I think that's where I'm saying, I think collating a lot of this data and then which kind of makes the human being that much more powerful to come with more predictive analytics is where I think we are all headed towards.
Thank you so much, Ashwath. So if I summarize it, what we all are saying is, with the advent that we have seen on the technology side, AI side, and now Gen AI, we can get all the data at one place, create integrated systems, which allows a lot of collaboration across, cross domains that we have. And that's one of the key when we're talking about planning and analysis, right? And then with AI statistical analysis, we can have more accurate forecast or prediction on how the business is going to move, how the external factors are going to impact. And with Gen AI, I would say the ability of scenario analysis is, it has improved a lot in terms of, the number of scenarios we can run, the speed at which these scenarios can be run. So with autonomous finance, I think we are moving to a place where, data can be analyzed. We have systems that can analyze data. It can get insights out of data, and it can take action as well on the basis of the data, right? And human are going to be optional. We would require inputs to take care of nuances, to take care of biasness and all. However, we are there. We are moving in the right direction. With that, I'll move to the next question, which is, I'll take that next question. I'll ask that next question to Madhuri, right? So, Madhuri, as head of digital solution and advanced analytics, you must have contributed to successful implementation of multiple AI, Gen AI projects as well. Could you help us understand the common challenges organizations face when integrating AI into their FP&A processes, and how can these challenges be overcome effectively?
Absolutely. So, one of the biggest challenges we face in the world of analytics is where we have uh, siloed data. By that I mean there's data in different domains boxed in their own instances or in their own context. For analytics to be successful, we want all of that data to be in one place, either in IoT or in a cloud instance. And it's not just data to be there, but well understood data. It's not enough if we have data. We need to understand what's in it because organizations use data. The same data element is used for different purposes in different organizations. So when I was part of GM finance transformation, um, there was a certain data label, used in a supply chain, for instance, and that same data label was used in 5 different ways across 5 different teams in supply chain alone. So we need to have a common understanding of the data dictionary, how to use that data element, and how to hierarchically define that data in reporting and such things. So I think we need to have quality data before we can get to a state where we say we'll have successful reporting or analytics based on that data. So going back to your question, the getting to that data quality, is the challenge, because a lot of times we have a ton of data, but we don't know what to do with it. We don't even know what sits in it, let alone what to do with it. So I think making sure that we have the data in the quality that we need and well understood, that is the biggest found. I mean, even bigger the company is, the more the challenge you have in this respect, because they are sitting on legacy platforms and data, and that is not well understood, and they are busy in just closing month end, quarter end, year end, and Yes, they are automating. Yes, they are also probably having some autonomous functions in reporting. But I think the bigger picture is lost because they're busy in just doing busy work. They need to take a step back and focus on data quality and prioritize that in their strategic vision so that they can move forward quickly when it comes to Gen AI, because the foundation of Gen AI is data quality.
Thank you so much, Madhuri, on this. Uh, Ashwath, we would appreciate hearing your thoughts as well on overcoming the barriers in AI integration and strategies for identifying and mitigating uh, potential biases in AI models that we use for FP&A.
Yeah. Thanks, Shipra, again. So I think before we get to the biases, I think again adding a little bit more my experience on the quality of data and the foundational org structure, or the how the data is like how the master data is arranged. I think that becomes the biggest barrier. Like I was in an organization with 45,000 people, and it had 45,000 cost centers. So just to give you an example, so I think and as you can imagine, out of that 45,000 cost centers, I'm sure maybe around at least 40,000 of them were not being used. Same thing with how is your cost center or profit center structured? Is your current the way a business unit is defined in your ERP? Is it the same way? Are you still running the business the same way? Because a lot of times businesses say that, okay, no, from tomorrow I need a P&L like this, and the master data or the systems are still kind of still living 2 years old. So then somebody in FP&A is still doing some manual work from before after to kind of keep changing the manipulating the data. That's where something which is automated kind of becomes completely manual, because you're not keeping your foundational data clean. So everybody comes, somebody says, okay, I need some cost center, so new thing gets created, but nobody worries about what are you doing with things that are not being used at all. So I think having a very clear taxonomy, okay, first deciding what do you want to really measure, what are your KPIs, and then kind of building backwards from there so that you know what's the taxonomy, what's your like harmonized system of nomenclature in a way. Having those definitions aligned, like you will always have a parent and a child structure for, be it like again your product structure, be it your cost center structures, profit center structures, etc. I think doing work around that, especially in large organizations with around 200 different sets of systems, I think is the most important thing, which kind of comes in the way of you might have the coolest, latest new algorithm or Gen AI or AI, but that's not going to help you solve the problem if your basic data structures are not well defined. Uh, so yeah, I think that was my main point around that. And coming back to a little bit on the biases, etc., I think now going a little bit outside of the our finance discussion, like I think all of us have seen what happened to Gemini with Google, like their LLM model, which was uh, yeah, showing a lot of politically both incorrect, factually incorrect, and completely different sets of results, which were not really kind of. It was basically a reflection of a lot of biases that were fed into the system. So, like I think coming from there, I think the concept of ethical AI, especially when it comes to if your AI system is deciding who gets credit, who doesn't get credit. So that's why I'm saying a little bit outside of finance. Or any of your financial analysis, if it's going to kind of result in some kind of decision that company is going to take, which might ultimately end up in discrimination, be it against employees, be it against any of the other stakeholders. I think that's something that people need to be well aware of, how the algorithm is written and whether it's kind of keeping all the compliance and other norms in place. So understanding the foundational models there is going to be very important, because it can expose an organization to lot of liabilities even before any of the productivity from automation is kind of flowing into the company.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Ashwit. Uh, Suman, the same question to you. What are the common challenges organizations face when integrating AI into FP&A processes, and how these can be identified and mitigated using AI models?
Thanks, Shipra. Well, I'm seeing this in real time with the client. So, just to add to Madhuri's point on data and which Ashwath elaborated on, that's so fundamental. I'll also add systems consolidation to it. Large corporations especially have such a multiplicity of systems and so many instances within one ERP. As Madhuri said, you just cannot get the benefit of AI unless you talk about enterprise-wide efforts, right? Which means that you break down silos. I think the other thing that is very complex is governance, right? There is this phrase that William Vaughan said, "To err is human. To really foul things up, you need a computer," and that's very, very obvious in the scenario that we're looking at. That the governance itself would need such different types of talent. It's pretty mind-boggling when you think of it that the frameworks of Gen AI are going to be pretty complex in terms of just to execute from a governance perspective. I think the third thing is change management. If you look at the, companies cannot and do not, of course, lose the human side of tech, right? No seminal movement in history has taken place without the human element. And it's important that the companies, while they are looking at implementing this, they prioritize empathy and understanding as opposed to salivating over the spreadsheet savings, right? So these are, from a challenge perspective, this is something which I'm seeing that playing out. In terms of biases, look, most of the AI models are created by humans, right? And they will reflect the bias of the creator. And just like we expect a level of trustworthiness from our human decision makers, we also should expect our models to be trustworthy. So I think mitigating them would obviously need at the governance level to accept the fact that there is bias, to understand the roots of it, and maybe come out with thoughtful mitigation strategies. But at the core of it, it's important for us to make sure that we accept inclusion and transparency as a fundamental while executing this. On the operational side, we can do tons of things, like auditing the data regularly just to see it's represented well and it's relevant. And I've seen a cash flow forecasting model which didn't have 360-degree views of inventory, payables, and receivables come out with very odd kind of information. Then, when you're looking at a forecasting model and you want to go on a real-time basis, you need to create some kind of automated monitoring systems which regularly filter out information which probably is not relevant. And of course, one of the critical things, models suffer from model drift, right? So you have to make sure models are current at every point of time. If you just leave a model to do what it is, it will sooner or later give you dated information.
Thank you so much.
Shipra, if it's okay, can I just
Yes.
add one
Yeah,
more
yeah,
point on the whole bias and the errors that can come out? Like, again, just taking a recent example, I think it's happened maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Like Lyft, which is a listed company, right? They announced their quarterly results, and since they're a West Coast company, they did it after 4 p.m. The Eastern time. And instead of in the guidance, instead of mentioning 50 bips margin expansion, they mentioned somebody put another zero. So they forecasted or the guidance had 500 bips of margin expansion, which obviously is a lot more than 50 bips. So, but as most of us know, like obviously, these days, a lot of trading happens algorithmically. So all the algorithmic trading kind of they picked it up, and then the stock price went up, I guess, around 50-60% after hours, with some very good amount of volume. So it was not some just one or people. So now they are under SEC investigation. So what I'm trying to say is that with more automation, some more controls, and even oversight, at least where we are right now, is going to be it's going to be very important. Otherwise, you open yourself up for a lot more risks in future. So
And I would also like to add on top of that is that we do have all these capabilities, nascent capabilities we are trying to explore and trying to incorporate in our everyday finance world. I think they are not ready for showtime or prime time. They are ready to be explored. They are ready to be used in an exploratory way, an educative way. They are not ready to be used for, production yet. They're not production ready because a lot of times your data itself is suffering from a lot of inherent biases, a lot of shortcomings. So you want to go through the learning. So you do need all your finance analysts in place. It's not like you can get rid of them tomorrow because they are the ones who are going to show the data the right way. They are the ones who are going to say, validate your data. If there makes that data makes sense or it doesn't. That extra zero that got added, probably there's a finance analyst that would have said, no, that's wrong, right? So that we're not ready for a machine to take over yet. We're not ready to automate. We are definitely there for the learning path, and those finance analysts need to be there, guardrailing that technology, making sure everything's right. And models are a very simplistic way of defining data, and they're limiting. You can't just have like a handful of models or half a dozen models define your data. There's definitely, data is more nuanced than that. And the more complex your business is, the more nuanced your data models are. So yes, they are a good starting point, but I think they need to be used as a template, not as an endpoint. So I would say, we still have ways to go.
Thank you for sharing those insights, Madhuri. So, of course, completely agree with all the points over here. Uh, we are talking about AI models, Gen AI models, and all these models are getting trained on the data that we have. When we are training these models, we need to take care of biasness. We need to make sure that data is diverse and it is representative of everything that we see, right? And there has to be some way to capture nuance which is known to people who have been working in this industry or domain for long, right? And then the algorithms which are getting built, Suman, you rightly mentioned that, it leads to algorithmic biasness as well. And that's why we need to have, regular audits around that to make sure they are working fine. So we need to have, some tools to take care of biasness that we're talking about, some tools to regularly monitor the algorithms that we have written, and we have to be compliant with, your GDPR, CCHA, these kind of norms as well. So with that, moving to the next question. Ashwath, with your extensive experience in finance and strategic leadership role, what impact do you think these new technologies will have on the talent industry? Technologies like AI, Gen AI, everything that we do on cloud side as well. And how will it shape the skill and competencies required for finance sector?
Perfect. So I definitely think everything with AI, Gen AI is going to drive productivity much higher than where it is right now. In the sense, will it happen overnight? The answer is definitely no. Will it? But the rapid pace of change is kind of mind-boggling in a lot of ways. Again, I think all of you might have followed this story where the CEO of a company called Klarna, which is a European buy now, pay later company, I think he announced that I think he has replaced almost 700 people in his call center operations with agents, AI agents, and then it's going to add like 40 million to the productivity or the profitability of the company. So yes, there will be examples, and I'm sure there will be more and more of these examples as we move into the future. So now I'm talking more as a finance leader for a company. I think one is using AI, Gen AI, other automation within the company, within the finance as a function. Then second is how you're going to use it with the rest of the company. That's where I guess it's going to take, or rather, it's going to have a huge impact. So I think the organization and people with various, obviously, financial skills, people with great finance analytics skills or finance skills overall, who know how to use automation or AI, will easily outperform people who might be very good with, say, finance, but who may not have this additional help from the system. So I think it's going to be more and more important. Obviously, you need to know how to do how your business operates. That's obviously fundamental, and that will continue to be one of the most important skills for people to have. But people who already have that, but also know how to use the system, like it could be a simple thing like even Microsoft Copilot right now to manage your meetings. So how do you summarize? How do you build a knowledge bot? Like right now, within our own company right now, most of the policy, the answers to any employee question on reimbursement, everything is being managed by a bot, right? The knowledge bot. So I think anybody who can do that will have more accurate financials, will be able to do hopefully real-time closing or much faster closing instead of waiting for say 10 days or something. So it will be much faster, more accurate, and definitely more time to do a lot more analytics, which will help you differentiate in the marketplace ultimately. So you are much faster to the market. So I think the talent is going to be, the AI will get augmented with great analysts and great managers and great leaders. I think that's where I think we are all headed. And there is nothing to be kind of afraid of. But at the same time, using technology as a friend and not something to be saying that, oh, wait a minute, it's going to kind of take my job away, is what will drive most of ours and all ours and our team success as we move forward.
Thank you, Ashwath. You know it all. Suman, with your expertise in finance and industry insights, how do you foresee the role of CFO evolving or changing with the advent of AI and these new technologies that we're talking about?
Well, from, excuse me, from my perspective, I think the CFOs are entering a very exciting world, to be honest, although they may not seem so, given that the challenges are increasing day by day. I see, but I think there's a distinct shift between just being a competent CFO running the finance function to moving probably as the principal thought officer of the company, right? This is going to be the single most important shift. And this is a very huge thing because much of the Gen AI and this revolution is going to assail every company on many fronts. First, for example, every CFO works with their management to ensure the highest risk adjusted returns for the company above their capital cost, right? That's fundamental. So, how do you prioritize your projects? You take your first 20 projects and you cannot say that, you know what, I have a very exciting project, but that doesn't have a GenAI tag, I won't do it, right? You will do what makes sense for the company in terms of getting that return because you'll not put the shareholders at on hook for a GenAI premium. Um, Now the question would be that, okay, how do you restore the talent behind it? Because that talent is costly. And because we don't have talent at scale, that's going to be something difficult to acquire. And you're also then sort of fighting with many other pretty marquee competitors. So when you look at in terms of how these things will play out, they'll increasingly have to ask more better questions, simplify tasks, and behind the CFO, the planning team will completely change in terms of its thought orientation. I think this we spend a disproportionate time, or we spent rather, explaining the past or optimizing the present. The focus will be more on the future, on the predictive, and that's where most time will be spent because you'll try to get an edge over your competitors who are doing the same thing. I think the other very important thing is the CFO is the chief de facto risk officer, right? And maybe you'll have a chief AI officer in the future, but Gen AI is going to bring a slew of risks, and the risks, and we see those risks playing out in terms of outputs that we hear where there is IP violations, or the Gen AI tool was hallucinating, and you come out with stuff which is completely egregious. So the CFO, being the risk officer, has to be in sync with these sort of changes which are buffeting the organization and can come from anywhere. Hence, navigating is not going to be easy, but it's also going to be exciting because they'll get the time to focus on this. In terms of FP&A teams, every tech super cycle always has some casualties in terms of jobs, but that's possibly because you're changing nature of the jobs. So you'll probably have more jobs in ethics, in responsible AI, more privacy, more legal. So then the color of the jobs will change. But if you look at pure financial folks, um, From my perspective, I think one thing they will need is more contextual skills, the ability to identify the right problems, to ask the right questions. I think they'll need much stronger collaboration skills because they'll be dealing with a wide range of subject matter experts. They get a lot of information from across the company, and they should have the ability to validate the outcomes. So, because at the end of the day, whatever they churn out is something that the company is going to believe in. And all this can be really done if you really focus on making sure that you have diverse data and you have diverse teams and you focus on inclusion and transparency.
Thank you so much, Suman. Madhuri, same question to you. You know, you're deeply involved in digital solutions and advanced analytics. So, how do you foresee the role of CFO changing, and what impact do you think it is going to have on the finance talent industry as well?
Sure. So right now, the CFO depends largely on his team of cross-functional leadership to come up with a predictive analysis on where the company is headed, right, financially. That's today. Yes, we do have models, but they are still models. They are still very exploratory in nature. We are still kind of trudging with caution. But let's say a year from now, hypothetically, some of those models are fairly mature. That CFO, 1 to 3 years, let's say, optimistically speaking, we have very mature models. The CFO then would have the capability to see, get access to a lot of those models without necessarily going about asking for that information or sitting in workshops. So the timeline for which the information access will definitely be quicker to the CFO. So making such strategic decisions, sitting in a CFO chair will be very easy for the CFO. However, having said that, there's a lot of caveats, throughout the ecosystem that this comes with. So, for what does that mean for the workforce in the organizations, or the finance departments? This means that you do have the finance analysts that are more comfortable just doing their finance roles today, but they will need to understand technology as well. That's going to be an embedded part of their role. It's not that their life is not just going to be in spreadsheets and access, and all these other financial tool sets. They also will need to go into some of the technology tool sets. They need to acquire them. So that's going to be a hybridized. Now, part of their job, they will have that need to also know technology, as part of their job. They won't have an IT partner to knock on if something, they don't understand. That's going to be them. They have to learn that new skill set. So that's going to make sure that their job is going to be, somewhat of a, if there is any insecurity, that is going to probably give them more security because they will have the knowledge from both business as well as technology. That's inherently going to be not only in finance but also in the other business units. Now, in terms of what has been mentioned here, with you know litigation and risks and other things, we do have to make sure that that data doesn't fall in the hands of people who don't understand the data, right? So that's another thing, is if you are a finance analyst and you're looking at data way beyond what you need to see, and you understand, there might be some not so much of a favorable consequence as a result of that, because there may be a misunderstanding of that data by us, by swaths of people in the company, and that may not be a good culture to have. So one needs to also put guardrails around it, make sure that we put data in the hands of people who understand the context of the data and understand how to use that data in a responsible way. So those are the things one needs to kind of put, guardrails around in a company for data. a lot of times when you have these data lakes and marts, you're writing queries. A lot of these people have access to so much data, and they are very powerful because they can see data in its nascent form. They understand what's going on. They are the first eyes to that data. So they need to be taught the responsible use of data, and a lot of that data needs also to be locked down to the right people. It should be placed in the right hands. That is something that companies need to think about as well, to prevent unauthorized data leaks or inadvertent data leaks. That's going to harm the image of the company or the reputation of the company.
Thank you, Madhuri.
Yeah.
So overall, what I feel is the integration of new technologies in FP&A processes, it's going to empower CFOs to play more strategic and proactive role in driving business growth, innovation, financial sustainability, and all. So one of the report, I was going through some research report, and what I've seen is almost 18% of the organizations where we have this data and analytics team, these DNA is led by CFOs, right? That's good change. So it'll be more of a chief growth leader role, I would say, and they will leverage technology as a strategic enabler to enhance decision making, and to create value for their organization. For talent, I feel that we have seen disruptions before as well, and the key to stay relevant, I would say, is continuous learning, right? And whatever impact we are hearing or we have read so far of Gen AI, I think it is gonna it is I don't see it becoming very evident in near future, at least. And that's why I think we should spend effort, energy, and train these people. And as I said, we were talking about nuance that is there in the data. So models, AI, it would not be able to understand, and that's why the best option is basically the role is going to change to upskill the talent that we have, right?
And
Okay,
Shipra, I would also like to add one small thing, if I may.
yeah,
Right now, finance analysts are seen as generalists, right? Somebody who doesn't understand anything in particular. They just understand FP&A, so they understand like what the labels mean, what the accounting labels mean, how they are used in reporting. However, now with this technology, they may be forced to become specialists in their domain. They may be forced to understand the technology relevant to that domain as well as the numbers that are in that domain. And they have to have a key eye on how those trends are, panning out, and what is making that trend go out of the, predicted path. So they need to have a key analytical knowledge to detect those kind of things. Yes, the machine will help, but they will be the sounding voice to make sure that what they are seeing in the machine is indeed validated, right? Because you cannot have a machine go rogue on just publishing something that a human doesn't see and validate.
right. Absolutely, Madhuri. And that's what, it's no longer finance is no longer an accounting or bookkeeping, book closing role, right? It's more of, as I said, because they are the data custodians, and the kind of, access to data that they have. Nobody else in the organization has got that access. And that's the reason, they can play that strategic role or role of a growth leader, because they understand the field better, and they know what questions to ask, what the right questions to ask, what someone was mentioning as well. With that, thank you, panel members, for an insightful and engaging discussion. In summary, if I would say, the rapid advancement in emerging technologies like AI, Gen AI, blockchain, and predictive analytics, they are revolutionizing finance world, reshaping role of CFO in creating new opportunities and challenges for finance professional. And I think adaptation, continuous learning, and strategic innovation will be the key to thriving in this evolving landscape. Uh, with that, I'll open it up for Q&A. People, if you have questions, please share the questions in the chat window, and we'll address as many as questions possible. Garima? Okay, one question I'll take up is what are the immediate uh, and long-term applications of Gen AI when we talk about, especially its ability to cut across all the data sources, interpretations, and decision-making processes. So, short-term, what are the immediate and long-term applications of Gen AI?
I can go, Shipra, if that's okay. Yeah. At least where I'm seeing this being used, at least in our organization and maybe in few others, I think any place where people have to read a long list of say multiple pages in a document and try and summarize it, or rather try and understand, I think ability to question without having to go through say 100 pages on something which is in page number 53. I think that will be solved with basic agents or things like that. I think that would be and since it's all within the organization's own firewall, so there is nobody else kind of, I think any of the open source more LLMs or other ones more. I think it's much easier to kind of build knowledge bots to answer those things. The second place where I think that's where the specialization in terms of, I think, building agents to do specialized tasks will be the next one for sure, I think. But that will be going maybe a little bit outside of finance. I think that's where there will be a lot more use cases. Like, you can build a data science agent, you can build even a data engineering agent, I think now. So I think maybe those specialized tasks which can be done by agent will be the other use case. But wherever there's proprietary data, which will, again, to solve a specific business problem, I think will take some time. So there won't be any plug and play immediate use case for Gen AI. I think those will need some amount of quite a bit of work before they can be used. But anything that summarization, search for a small specialized task, I think all of them will can get automated with Gen AI. That's how I'm looking at it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ashwin. We have another question, which is more around metadata, master data. So one is, as you mentioned about the master data quality issues across different verticals, what would be the best approach for an organization which has already grown big in terms of business complexity?
I can say at least the approach that has worked for me in the past in terms of cleaning up the master data. I think start with the current org structure. Like if you were to ask your chief people officer how the organization is structured and how you have your reporting segments, and then kind of work backwards from that level to, like, okay, if you have 5 reporting segments and these are the KPIs within that you want to report, so what is the real data that, like, so you start from parent and go to the child and to the grandchild. So basically build it backwards from what you want your final reportings to be, and then go and clean it up like that. The other is to kind of start with also a definition or a taxonomy that I talked about. Taxonomy generally is very helpful. Then you can also do the other analytics, like, okay, so which is the part of the master data, or how many, again, going back to my example, cost centers are being used at all. Maybe something is not being used for last, so go block them. That I was recently checking somewhere that, okay, we have like 3,000 vendors in our master data. I'm like, okay, I can't think of anybody more than 100. So that's an accumulation. So it's like one of our board of directors. Some of these things are like nails. They keep growing unless you keep cutting them. So you have to keep doing that spring cleaning every other month, or every other once, at least once every 6 months. You have to keep looking at your master data and checking that, okay, is it serving the purpose that it was initially designed for? Those are some of the tactics that has at least helped me in the past.
I would also like to add that master data management is an end, but there is a process. So focus on the process. Focus on how you're going to achieve that master data management, and what is the governance framework and model that you're going to use. Focus on that, because that is your you don't put band-aid fixes. You address it from the root cause, and the root cause is the process and the framework. You need to have a sound framework. The bigger you have, the more important it becomes to have a framework, underlying framework, to have that master data management. Otherwise you're going to keep putting band-aid fixes until a point where it's going to be like those thousands of cost centers, right? So you don't want that. So that's symptom, but you need to manage the root cause and manage that, so you won't have those kind of symptoms to later put band-aids on.
That's exactly the point, that you've grown through band-aid fixes. You have to unravel that and simplify. So in a way, you shrink before you start moving to the next level, and that's what we've seen. And this is how the biggest challenge perhaps is, how do you run the business at the same time while you're doing this? You're building the plane while flying.
Mm.
It's easier said than done, but it has to be done because that's the nature of the beast.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We are almost reaching the top of the hour. We have covered a lot of ground, from the impact of emerging technologies to evolving role of finance leaders. As we wrap up, I would like to leave you with a few takeaways. Embrace change, focus on data-driven decisions, collaborate and integrate, maintain ethical standards and responsible practices. And the most important thing is keep learning. Please take these insights and apply them to your organizations. The journey towards autonomous finance may seem daunting, but with the right strategies, tools, and mindset, it presents tremendous opportunities for growth and efficiency. Before we conclude, I would like to extend heartfelt thanks to all our speakers and attendees for making this webinar a success. If you have further questions or would like to continue the conversation, please feel free to reach out. Ashwath, Suman, Madhuri, any last thoughts before we close the webinar?
Just keep an open mind and be excited about the future.
I think change management is going to be key, and one needs to be open to change, as well as trying to reinvent one's roles in the company. So don't be scared of that, what's coming at you. Insecurity is very natural at first, because there's a lot of change coming at you, but it's all going to depend on how you take it and how you implement it in your roles. So don't be scared of it. Continuously learn. Don't stop learning.
Ash-
Yeah, I think it's the most exciting time to be the rate at which things are changing. I think it's really exciting times to be in. Like, don't be afraid of the change. I think we're still not in any place closer to AGI, and even I think we are already, all the human beings are already at the AGI stage. So I think this technology is our friend. I think it can be augmented to kind of make ourselves much better and keep learning, so that like at maybe 25 years ago, somebody who could use the calculator really well was the smartest person. But now, yeah, I think it's basically you have a lot more embedded technology that's going to help us to drive the company in a much more efficient and effective manner.
Thank you so much, Ashwath. Thank you, Suman. Thank you, Madhuri.
You're welcome.
Thank you, people on the call. Wishing you all continued success in your FP&A endeavors in the age of autonomous finance. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye. Take care.